Welcome. In this video, we're going to go over an introduction to queries and query structure, cover some useful learning tools in PHP MyAdmin, as well as constructing some basic queries to select, insert, update, and delete data from our tables. First, let's start with what a query is. Queries are sets of instructions written in a language that can be understood by the database system. In our case, that system is MySQL. Queries have three basic parts: an action, a location, and a restriction. An action, or what the purpose of the query is, will begin with either select, insert, update, or delete. A location, which identifies which table or tables the action will be performed on, will be started by from and the table name. The restrictions, which is the most expansive section, covers what columns and rows of data will be affected. Most of them will start with where and the set of the restrictions. Restrictions often use operators like greater than, less than, equals, not equals, like, or not like. So let's quickly go over some of those tools I mentioned. If we select our database, you can see we already have some data in it from earlier. But up here, there are the search and insert tabs. Those will allow us to do things through a form instead of making a query. Now our goal is to make queries, but they can help us understand what's going on. So if I wanted to insert, I can say I want to insert Smith, and then just click go. And you can see the insert it created. This is the format it follows. And now we're on the SQL tab, which is where you will write your own queries. And that brings us to the second thing that it has that's useful. It allows you to have default formats for deletes, updates, inserts, and selects. These tools can be very helpful when you're still getting used to the whole formatting of queries. But let's start making our own. For now, I'm going to use their preset format. This is a select. It's selecting ID, first name, and last name columns from the table name where1. Saying where1 is like saying where nothing. You don't even actually have to have this, but it uses it in the default. And I'll click go, and you see it gives us all the things in the table. ID, first name, and last name, and everything in here. Now, we can edit in line to make things a little easier for us. And if I were to change ID, first name, and last name to star, I'll actually get the same thing because star means everything. That way you don't have to list them all out. So if I click go, I get the same results. Next, let's go back and say where first name equals James. Now, because first name is a character set, we want to put the value in quotes. That identifies that we're talking about characters. If you don't put it in quotes, it's going to assume it's a number, and we'll probably get nothing in this case. So we click OK, and it gives us only the records who have a first name of James. If we wanted instead to use a number, we could say where ID equals 1 or ID equals 4. Because these are numbers, we don't have to use those quotes. And an or means I'll accept it if either of these things are true. So I click go, and you see ID 1 James, but now we have ID 4 Amy. Next, we'll cover making more than one thing true. This one is either, but if we wanted two things to be true, we would change it to and the ID is never going to be the same number. So we're going to do first name again. You can also auto finish with this. Equals James. And remember when we just had James, we got 2 results. But because now we're also requiring the ID to equal 1, we only get 1 James. Next, let's change our search so that we only want the first name and last name. Let's say we didn't care about ID. I can change this to first name, comma, and when I run it this time, ID is no longer in the column. Next, let's, instead of using equals, use greater than. If I say where ID is greater than 1 and click go, you can see that it gives me 9 results. We're missing the first ID. I'm going to go ahead and put ID back in there just so that we can see what all's going on. Now, along with greater than, less than, and equals, there is not equals. So if I said where ID is not equal, that's an exclamation equal 4 or 5, I can click go, and you can see we've got all of them except ID 5. That's not equals. Last, we'll talk about likes. Likes are only used for strings. So let's do first name again. Like, open a quote. We're going to enter a percent. Percent is a wildcard character. It means anything before A, and that's just the letter A. And we're going to put another percent. So any A with anything before it or anything after it is acceptable. So I click go, and now I only get the names that have an A in them. And if you wanted only the ones without an A, you can just do not like. And that gives me the others. Now, there's one thing we haven't covered yet. We've been setting everything equal to or like something we're entering. But what happens if you're looking for a comparison of data you already have? So let's say where first name equals last name. And if we do that, then it'll actually look at everything in first name and find the ones that match it in last name. And if we click go, then we'll see Smith Smith, which we entered earlier. We'll be moving along now into the next video where we're going to do the rest of the updates, inserts, and deletes.